Welcome to Stuff They Didn't Teach Me in Sunday School. If you were with us the last time we were together, you remember we talked about Abraham and how God was at work in his life. If you paid attention in Sunday school, you realized that God did fulfill his promise to Abraham to give him a son, and that son was Isaac. He had another son along the way, Ishmael, but the son of promise was Isaac. Well, there came a day at the end of Abraham's life, or toward the end of his life, when Sarah died. And Abraham looked around, and this nomadic shepherd who had been promised land owned nothing in terms of land, had nowhere to bury his wife. So he had to go to the local yokels and talk to them about a cave. And in terms of the theological content of Genesis chapter 23, which is where the cave is purchased, there's not a lot of theological significance to that chapter, but there is a great deal of cultural significance. You get a glimpse into the mindset of the ancient Near Easterner. Sarah dies at 127 years old, according to Genesis chapter 23. And Abraham, we're told in verse 3, rose up from his dead and said to the Hittites, he's sitting in the gate of the city at Hebron, and he rises up and stands with everybody sitting around and says, I'm a stranger and a sojourner among you. Give me property among you for a burying place that I may bury my dead. And the Hittites then all stand up and they say, oh, you are a great master, a great lord, a great man. Just take your pick of anywhere, bury her anywhere you want to. And then in verse 7, we're told Abraham rose up. Oh, there's all this standing and sitting in this setting. Abraham rose up and bowed to the Hittites and said to them, if you are willing that I should bury my dead out of my sight, hear me, and entreat for me Ephron the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns. It's at the end of the field. He already knew what he wanted to buy. Today, we would go right to Ephron and say, hey, you got a really great cave there. I've got a dead wife. I need to bury her. Can I buy your cave? Not in that day. They sat in the city gate and had this conversation as if the other guy wasn't there. And you find out right away in verse 10, now Ephron was sitting among the Hittites. Abraham knew that, but that's not the way he played the game. And Ephron stands up in verse 11, no, my lord, hear me. I give you the field, and I give you the cave that's in it. Now, did you catch that? Abraham didn't ask for the field. Abraham asked for the cave. Ephron said, it's a package deal. The field goes with the cave. In the presence of my sons, the sons of my people, I give it to you. Bury your dead. Abraham stands up and he bows. And he says, if you will hear me, I will give the price of the field. Okay, I'll take your field too. Accept it from me that I may bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, my lord, listen to me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that between you and me? Bury your dead. What's Ephron done? He's named the price. All of this without Abraham ever saying how much, and Ephron ever saying, here's what it's going to cost you, buddy. Abraham agreed with Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver which he had named in the hearing of the Hittites, 400 shekels of silver, according to the weights current among the merchants. A couple things significant about that. One is just to get the mindset of how these people dealt with each other and talked to each other and how business was conducted. It wasn't a bad thing, but all this business was conducted in the city gate, out in the open where everybody could see it. But it was all conducted very, very properly and very carefully orchestrated. Another significant thing about this story, if you remember the promise to Abraham, God had promised him that he would have land, that he would have offspring, and that he would be a blessing to the nations. And here we are at the end of Abraham's life, and when Sarah dies, he has no land, nowhere to bury her. He has one offspring of promise, and he really hasn't been much of a blessing to the nations yet. God's time was not the same as Abraham's time. There would come a time when all of those things would come true. But Abraham would only live to see the one son of promise and a cave and a field around it that he bought in Genesis chapter 23.